Hi, my name is Bente, I'm the Norse Witch, and today I want to chat with you a little bit about ancestor work. But of course, as always, a little Patron shout out before we start. Thank you really much to Maggie, Betty, Misty, Daniela Lee, Stefan, Cameron, Ines, Tiffany, Amy, Rhiannon, Dario, Colette, Ellie, or Ally, still don't know, the Lunar Botanist, Soren, Braden, Diego, Bethany, Hannah, Tel, Timothy, Coffee, or the Honorary Gossip Squirrel, Bjorn, Scylla, Ash, Shannon, Lorna, Lucy, and Joss. These Patron shoutouts get really long now. But let's hop right into the topic. As I already said, I want to have a little chat with you about ancestor work because it's a topic that I've never really talked about on my channel. Also due to the fact that I've only really started connecting with my ancestors around last year, around Samhain. I started back then, I didn't really do that much, and now I'm kind of really getting into it. For me at the moment, it's so satisfying to connect with my ancestors in various different ways, so I thought, why don't I share these ways with you? But before we hop into the ways in which you can connect with your ancestors, I want to have a little chat about who your ancestors actually are, because I feel like everyone sees that a little bit differently. So I just want to give you my humble opinion on the matter. I think that's very important because I have gotten some comments saying I don't really have a connection to my family, or I have a lot of trauma connected to my family. Can I still do ancestor work? So I just want to talk a little bit about that. So the first thing that will probably come up for a lot of people will be their grandparents. For example, that was the case for me. At first, I only really connected to my grandparents. So of course, your whole family bloodline makes up a part of your ancestors, but they're not the only ancestors you have. For example, anyone who has married into the family can also be part of your ancestors, or anyone who got adopted, for example. You don't necessarily have to be blood related with someone for them to become your ancestor. I, for example, also think that if maybe your grandparents had a very close friend and they were always part of your family celebrations, maybe they were even invited over for holiday festivities, and you know them really well, they can also become an ancestor of yours. At least that's what I believe in. Moreover, I think that even in general, the population that lives in the area you're from is also kind of connected to your ancestors. So if you, for example, I don't know, let's just take me as an example. I have ancestry from Denmark and Sweden, but also a lot from Scotland, Ireland, Wales. I don't really know where exactly, but that's also in there, that's also a very big part, and then Eastern Europe. So people from there in general, I would also see as my ancestors. And for me personally, that also includes everyone who either was into the same things as I am. Like if I think about the biggest passions that I have in life, so for example, for me that would be witchcraft and everything that has to do with art and music and stuff. If I feel especially connected to someone, they can also be part of my ancestry. And that also, of course, applies to your religion. So for me, I see basically everyone who was Norse pagan as my personal ancestors. But of course, as I said, that's only my humble opinion. I bet there are a lot of people out there who will disagree with me, who will maybe only see their blood-related family members or their family in general as their ancestors. To each their own, it's just my personal opinion. Make up your own. And then lastly, yeah, since I personally believe that not only my family are my ancestors, I don't really think that you have to work with your family when you work with your ancestors. You can connect to other parts of your ancestry. You don't necessarily have to work with your family. For example, if you are adopted and you don't even know your parents, you don't know your family, but you know your adopted family, then in my opinion, it's completely fine to work with like the bloodline of your adopted family as your ancestors. You don't have to work with your blood-related family if you want to work with your ancestors, especially if you have a very bad relationship to especially some people in your family. Just exclude them. Just don't work with them. You don't have to work with everyone. Pick the parts of your ancestry that you feel connected to and work with those. That's my personal opinion. But now, that being said, let's jump into the ways that I feel like I like to connect with my ancestors. Let's just start with the very kind of obvious ones. The first obvious way to connect with your ancestors is, of course, to create an altar for them and to give offerings there, regular offerings. I have a fairly small separate altar, like it's not on my working altar or anything. I like to kind of keep it separate, and I just keep some stuff there that I connect with my ancestors. So for example, for me, it's a lot of stuff that belonged to my grandparents. But for example, I also keep an orchid on there, which didn't belong to them. I basically keep it there because my grandma really liked orchids. So I thought it would be a nice offering to kind of try to keep this orchid alive, because I'm not good with orchids. But it seems to be doing well, so I think that's a really nice offering for my ancestors. But yeah, you don't have to put anything from your family on your ancestor altar. For example, I recently met my ancestors, or some of my ancestors, when I went on a journey to the lower world, and they kind of told me what they wanted more of on their altar. So for example, they wanted more Norse related stuff on my altar, and a little bit of Scottish stuff, which I found interesting, and like marine related things like anchors and stuff like that. So yeah, just find out what works for you on your ancestor altar. Do whatever works for you and what makes sense if you think about your own ancestry. When it comes to the offerings, do whatever works for you. I like to, for example, give just water daily that I kind of charged with energy. I give that daily because I feel like that is something that I can pretty quickly do, and I don't really waste a lot of food. Do whatever works for you. You could also give just weekly offerings, monthly offerings, once a year, whatever works. Give maybe incense as an offering, whatever you like, really. Then of course, another really obvious one would be to meditate. Connect to your ancestors while you're meditating. Especially that can be really fun and really satisfying with something that belonged maybe to one of your deceased family members. So I have, for example, quite some necklaces that belong to my grandma. For example, I could hold one of these necklaces in my hands and meditate with that. And also you can take it a step further and go more into trance journeying, spirit flight, however you really want to call it, and go to the lower worlds. If you think of like the three worlds, the upper world, the middle world, the lower world, the ancestors will most probably be in the lower world. So you can journey to the lower world and meet your ancestors there. That's what I have recently done, and it was really, really cool to just actually talk to them. Other than that, I really like to take walks on cemeteries, especially if maybe one of your deceased family members, their grave is on that cemetery. Of course, extra bonus points for that. But I feel like taking a walk on a cemetery is a nice way to kind of connect to your ancestors. Of course, related to that, visit the graves of your deceased family members and maybe give offerings there. Just sit there and try to connect, maybe meditate there if you are undisturbed. That can be, of course, a really obvious and nice way to connect with your ancestors. I also like to kind of do some research on my family history, try to find out where specific family members came from. Yeah, that's also why, for example, I did a DNA test to kind of find out where my family is from in general. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have known that I have like Scottish, Welsh, Irish ancestry. I wouldn't have known that ever. I knew that I have like Scandinavian ancestry, but I didn't know about the Scottish, Irish and Welsh part. So that was really, really interesting to find out. Also, you can of course just ask other family members, ask your parents, your grandparents if they know anything about your family history. Maybe one of your ancestors even like wrote journals that you could read. That would be really interesting. Unfortunately, that's not the case for me, but I feel like if they did, that would be so cool to read. Another way I really like to connect to my ancestors is to do research on the parts of the world that my family is from. For example, for me that would be largely Scandinavia, because that's kind of the part of my ancestry that I connect to most. Mainly also because I am from northern Germany, from a part of Germany that was Danish for the most part of history. So yeah, just do some research maybe on the plants that grow there, the animals in the area, the history, of course, maybe the religions that were practiced there. And something that I myself really, really enjoy at the moment is research the folklore from that area. That's so fun. Learning the language of the country that your family is from, or the countries that your family is from, can also be a really great way to connect with your ancestors. For example, I would really love to learn Danish now. Unfortunately, although we had a Danish school in my town, I didn't go to a Danish school and I didn't learn Danish in school. Although that could have been a possibility back then, but it just never happened, and I back then wasn't really into anything Danish. But now I really want to learn Danish. At the moment, I don't have the time to do that, unfortunately, but I really plan on doing that at some point. Another probably obvious idea is, of course, to visit the lands that your family is from. Of course, I went to Denmark a lot of times because we always went camping there. But for example, I've never been to Sweden. I've never been to like either Scotland or Ireland or Wales. So I would really like to visit these lands and connect maybe also to the land spirits there and just experience everything. When I went to Copenhagen this year, I think in March it was, I felt so connected to my ancestors there. It was amazing. So I really want to go back. And then lastly, the last idea that I had is to indulge in activities that your ancestors love. If your grandma maybe had a hobby that she really loved, learn that. Or if your grandpa had a favorite meal that they really enjoyed, cook that meal. Find out what your ancestors love to do and then do that. That can be a really great way to connect with your ancestors. And now I asked my community on Instagram again for their ideas. So let me quickly pull out the community ideas. Okay, I have the community ideas here and I got quite a lot of them. I am pleased. So the first one, take my shoes off and walk in ancient places. Well, that sounds amazing. I would love to do that. I asked my mom stories about them, who they were, what they did, and her favorite memory of them. Yeah. Ask your family about your deceased family members. Talk to them about them. Just remember them. In general, talking about your ancestors, talking about deceased family members. It's so important to remember them, and just telling stories about them is a great way to remember them. I wade into local lakes, place blood on my forehead, and say their full names with my eyes closed. That sounds powerful. Talk to them. Yeah, talk to them just directly. Either just stand in front of your altar, just try to get into a light meditative state and just talk to them. Maybe just tell them how your day is going. That's already great. But of course, by, for example, journeying to the lower worlds, you can talk to them directly, which is also really fun. Offer up and talk to them, whether it be raining or at night. Ooh, when it's raining. That sounds nice. I meditate with jewelry or an object that belonged to them. Yeah, same. Talk to them, light a candle, use ancestor oil I made, and I find cooking from scratch is a good one. Yeah, I feel like I should learn how to cook properly so I can just cook for my ancestors. Light a candle for them and put photos of them to those candles. I often talk to them too. Yeah, I also have a photo of my grandparents on my altar. I really like to do that. Okay, a German comment. Let me quickly translate that. I have an ancestor altar where I give them a little offering of Kölnisch Wasser daily. So yeah, little daily offerings, great. I have a small altar that I really need to put fresh offerings on more frequently. Yeah, I haven't really given them daily offerings for the longest time. I only pretty recently started doing that. And now I just give them and also my deities a daily offering of water, and myself too. And yeah, just sit there and drink the water silently and try to connect with them and think about them. But take your time while doing it. I have been connecting with my ancestors by asking for family recipes and making them. Yes! I do nothing as my house spirits and ancestors seem to always visibly come to me. That's so cool. I wish that would happen to me, but I bet they're probably around, but I just don't perceive them. I love to light a candle on my altar for them, give offerings, and call upon them during divination work. Yeah, lighting a candle for them seems to be a very popular thing to do. Even if you only have one working altar, just dedicate a little space to them, light a candle. Yeah, with intention. I struggle with that. I haven't felt like I've been able to connect in a long time. Just continue doing it, and I guess at some point it will be really easy again. I like to talk to them like they are there, bring them their favorite foods and drinks. Yeah, food and drinks, always good. I try to listen up to your meditation, but I fall asleep in the first 5 minutes. Yeah, I recently uploaded a guided meditation to meet your ancestors and talk to them on my Patreon. Apparently it's too relaxing. Sorry. I'm not adopted, but family full of adoption and estrangement, so lots of genealogy research, both bio and DNA research, because both families except grandpas. What? I can't read that. Ah, okay. I think they did both bio and DNA research on their families except their grandpa's biological family, because he asked them not to do so, they don't. Yeah, DNA testing and genealogy research is great. I was so happy when I found out like where I'm actually from, like DNA wise. I mean, of course it's not 100% accurate. I'm actually thinking about doing another DNA test at another company to see whether that kind of aligns or whether it's completely different. But yeah, that was really important for me too. Also Duolingo. Yes, learn their languages. Food, they're Japanese and Italian, so wow, that's such a cool mixture. Japanese and Italian. Also, yeah, lots of great food. Also music, I try both old and new age songs. That's a great idea actually, to maybe just play their favorite types of music when you give them offerings. That's actually great. I think I will ask my mother what my grandparents' favorite music was. It will be a lot of Schlager though, which if you're German, you'll know that that's not good. And language, most importantly. Yes. And lastly, meditation. Sometimes I just sit outside in silence and feel the wind while I think of them. Yes. Just think of them, remember them, tell stories about them. That's so important. Just don't forget them. I really enjoyed making this video, and of course I really hope that you also enjoyed watching this video. If you like, and yeah, if you'd like to share that, feel free to leave your ideas for connecting to your ancestors in the comments, especially if it's something that neither me nor the community thought about. As always, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to subscribe and give a thumbs up, and follow me on Instagram and TikTok and hello cat. Check out my online shop and maybe even consider becoming my patron. Juno also thinks you should subscribe to my Patreon. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!